I have said, and I will continue to stay on this show, that social media is not reflective of reality. And while, of course, it has some useful purposes and could have many more, it is mainly a repository for the rabid. Negativity is a proxy for insight. The angry, the loudest, they get the most attention. I don't know the last time a reporter called me and said, hey, would you like to comment on this nice thing that was said about you on social media? It never happens. It's always about something nasty, because that's what generates the energy online. But maybe I'm wrong. Many on social media certainly want you to think that you should listen to them, that they are the real reflection of what this country thinks. I think they reflect the fringe. So here, it's not about what I think. Okay, it's not, listen to me, everybody else is lying. Here, the standard is, we know what we can show. With that, I introduce you to proof in person. John Dick, a man who measures sentiment in this country forensically. And he is here and has some big surprises for us. John, thank you very much for joining the show. I know we had connectivity issues, so I hope that you're seeing and hearing me okay.
Hearing you great. Congrats on the new show, Chris. Thanks so much for having me.
Now, tell people where they can find your podcast and your research so they can come and vet this stuff.
Well, our company is Civic Science, based here in Pittsburgh. You can find us on civicscience.com. We publish a ton of content. We have a podcast called The Dumbest Guy in the Room. A lot of different places to find the information that we share with the world.
All right, let's talk about that information. All right? I say that the fringe is what's getting the energy on social media, and it doesn't matter that the media use it as vox populi, voice of the people. That's not what it is. You say you see it in the numbers. How so?
Yeah, I mean, just statistically, you're 100% correct. We've got a country that is more or less 20 or so percent to the left, 20 or so percent to the right, and the big 60% right there in the middle. And that 60% isn't heard from very often for a litany of different reasons we can talk about.
Let's talk about it, but let's put the numbers up. You're a handsome guy, but I want people to see the numbers. Do me a favor, put up the polling that John has to support this, where you see that you have less than 20% identify as strong Democrat or strong Republican, which is absolutely the echo effect of what you hear on social media. There's no kind of reasonable or moderate anything. 63% of us, though, don't identify that way. And that's an indicator. And by the way, John, what you put out here was confirmed also in that big Harvard study they did, where they looked at Democrats, and 80% of Democrats describe themselves as center-left. And that does not comport at all. So why do you think the minority gets magnified?
Well, there's a number of reasons. First of all, they speak out the most because the way media and social media works, it tends to magnify the sort of more outlandish or even absurd or certainly provocative statements, which tend to come from those two sides. I think a second part of it is that people in the middle, not only do their points of view tend to not get the clicks and the attention, but they're heavily disincentivized from speaking out on social media, because if you have a moderate point of view, you run the risk of alienating both sides. And everybody be your enemy, because we sort of live in this culture right now where if you're not on my side, you're against me. And that leaves a bunch of people right smack in the middle of no man's land.
You're getting an amen from Andrew Yang, who's off camera right now and going to come up on the show when you're saying that. Now, here's what's significant about this. It's not just about what's on social media versus somewhere else. It's what permeates and what winds up driving the sentiment of everybody involved because of what's being magnified. You see that in the numbers about how people feel about the economy, and you look at it two different ways. The first one is where you look at it in terms of consumer sentiment, right? Let's put those up. How concerned are you about inflation? Inflation, everybody's talking about it, right? It's about a little bit more than 8% in the last measure. Democrat, 34%. Independent, 48%. Republican, 70%. How do you explain the numbers?
Well, it's certainly not because one group on that list has different financial fortunes than the other one. It is a function of at some point in the last decade or so, at least in our data, people's political views seem to be driving their economic views in ways that really never happened before. What that data says to us is that people's views of the economy are born more of the confidence they have in the political leadership to steer the economy. And as you might expect, the party in power has the people supporting the party in power generally have a more optimistic view of where the current leadership is going to take us, and those not in power have a significantly more pessimistic one. It's not grounded in necessarily a rational sense of their own job or their own personal finances or their own housing circumstances. It's really kind of born of like some hope and fear that they have on the political circumstances.
Well, and you get that from another metric that you brought us, because look, everybody can feel different ways about economic numbers. That's part of economic analysis. But the last one is that literally you have people believing different realities on the basis of political identity. How so?
Well, I mean, that chart pretty much speaks for itself. What we're measuring there, our company produces an economic sentiment index where we track every day people's attitudes toward the housing market, the job market, their personal finances. And if you average those lines out, it looks pretty normal. But what you've got here is when you divide the view of the economy between Republicans and Democrats, you see two completely different stories. Certainly pre-2016, Republicans had a much lesser view of the economy than Democrats did. I think that would explain a lot of what happened in 2016. But look at what happened on November 3rd of 2016. Republican sentiment shot through the roof. Did they all of a sudden get a better job, make more money, get a bigger house? Nope. The only thing that changed was who was going into the White House at that point in time. And we saw the reverse happen in 2020. It's just our sense of reality today is driven so much by our political views and what we're told to believe from our political tribes. We're not as rational maybe as we once were.
The fringe is literally leading the fold. I want you to come on the show on a regular basis. We've been talking, obviously, off camera about this. I've been working John to have him come on for a while. What do you hope to do with the analysis for people?
I mean, I think just to share with people what the truth is. The truth gets lost. The problem oftentimes is the truth is boring. The truth doesn't grab headlines. It doesn't get a million viral tweets and likes on Facebook. It's often sort of mundane, but it's the truth. And we reminding people that particularly that big 60+% of people in the middle, that not only are they not alone, but they're actually the largest segment of our population. And they should find some comfort in that. And hopefully maybe a little bit more cynicism when they see things put in front of them from those two sides, those two fringes on either side.
You see, you don't have to believe it from me. You can believe it from John Dick. He looks like he's one of the lost members of the band Journey that I loved growing up. And he's got the data to prove it. We'll keep talking to you about you and how the majority in this country has the power. These guys I'm calling the free agents. You could make a difference. Social media is not our reality if we don't want it to be. John Dick, thank you very much. Civic Science, people can check it out. Great podcast, great website. Appreciate you, brother. I'll see you again soon.
See you soon. Thanks.